Welcome back. You're listening to episode 2 of The Legacy of Ludvig Nobel, the unsung architect of peace through profit. And in our first episode, we covered Ludwig's early years in St. Petersburg, where he stepped up as the family's key business leader, growing factories and spreading out his investments to reduce risks and turning ideas into real money faster than his brothers could. So, in this part 2 today, we'll dive into the middle part of his life, the 1870s to the early 1880s, when big ambitions read head on into the wild challenges of Baku. There, he was working with his brothers, Robert and Alfred. Ludwig, he started Branobel, a fully connected oil company that controlled everything from drilling to selling. It went head to head with giants like Standard Oil. But this wasn't just a grab for oil wealth. It mixed clever inventions with real care for people, like ships designed to carry oil safely across rough waters, and programs that improved workers' daily lives. So just settle in as we dive into the beating heart of the Nobel oil saga. And this is where Ludwig's razor sharp business savvy didn't just chase the black gold, but transformed it into a timeless playbook for building empires that deliver real profits and treat people right. It all started in 1873. Robert, and remember, he's the oldest brother and the family's explorer, traveled across the wide grassy plains in southern Russia looking for walnut wood to make gun stocks for their factories. Instead, he discovered Baku, a remote, undeveloped spot on the edge of the old Persian Empire where natural oil was seeping up from the ground like a thick, bubbling mud from a nightmare, covering local villagers in sticky black tar. An oil boom had taken hold there. There were wild speculators. They were drilling holes everywhere without much control, causing uncontrolled fires to break out, while in far-off St. Petersburg, fancy parlors were lit by flickering kerosene lamps made from this crude oil. Back at his factory on the Ota River, Ludwig didn't see just mess and danger. He saw a huge opportunity waiting to be shaped. He quickly sent money to Robert, and by 1875, the brothers had bought 60 acres of this land soaked with those oil seeps. And Robert set up a basic refinery using wooden barrels to boil and separate a light oil called naphtha. But the output was small and the quantity was terrible, smelly and impure. That's when Ludwig stepped in with his engineering smarts. He redesigned the whole setup to produce clear, high-quality kerosene that burned cleaner and brighter than the stuff coming from Pennsylvania oil fields in America. The early days were rough. Robert's first big shipment to Moscow got turned away because it still stank of sulfur. Ludwig, always ready to fix problems, hopped on a long, bumpy trade ride south through the rugged Caucasus Mountains and arrived in Baku's overcrowded, dusty marketplace, full of mud brick houses and noisy camels. Right there, amid the chaos, he drew plans for a better distillation equipment on bits of scrap paper, borrowing ideas from his cream separating machines back home to split the crude oil into different parts more effectively. By 1876, the Nobel brothers refinery was churning out 100 barrels a day. Not a massive amount, but pure and reliable, which let them charge top prices in the markets of Tiflis, which is now Tbilisi. And In 1878, Ludwig launched the MS Zoroaster, and this was incredible. It was the world's first oil tanker, a 250-ton ship with iron tanks built right into its sides. It could carry 600 tons of oil across the Caspian Sea, cutting transport costs in half and replacing leaky wooden barrels tied to regular ship decks. He soon built a fleet of 12 such tankers, years before others caught on. The Zoroaster's launch was a big event in Baku's harbor at sunset, with the ship's hulls cracking as oil loaded inside. Ludwig himself skippered the first trip, and it turned out to be a really rough 48 ride through the storms to Astrakhan, and they arrived without spilling a drop. Before tankers, oil shipments in wooden casks lost 20% to leaks and evaporation on the way. But these Zoroaster-style ships wasted almost nothing, letting Branobel undercut competitors by 15%. And Ludwig, he just kept on improving. Later ships had double hulls and steam pumps, drawing from his Navy background. By 1880, the fleet served not just the Caspian, but the Black Sea too, unloading in Odessa to supply hungry European markets. Next came pipelines. Europe's first one stretching 10 miles from the oil wells to the Caspian shore. Then by 1885, Branobel had 1,000 rail tank cars rumbling crude oil to Volga river ports. In 1879, the company went official as Branobel. And this is just a short nickname, or not a nickname, but a company name for Brothers Nobel. Again, Branobel. And that was a joint stock powerhouse that handled everything from drilling and refining to shipping and selling. And Ludwig, he owned the most shares, and Alfred chipped in some cash from his dynamite sales, and Robert ran the oil fields. And by 1883, they controlled 25% of Russia's oil output, exporting to Asia and Europe. You know, it's a $10 million business, but that's billions of dollars in today's value. And going public with the company was really smart. It pulled in investors like Russian nobles and American traders, trading some family control for way more money. Ludwig led the first board meeting in a smoky Baku tea house, and there were maps spread out on the table, and but he had a really big idea, and that was vertical integration. And it was an ironclad philosophy. Control every link in the supply chain or risk being shackled by those who do. This setup smoothed out ups and downs. When prices tanked in 1881, they stockpiled and sold high in 1882. Output tripled each year with 20% dividends, money that bankrolled Alfred's inventions and later Ludwig's worker benefits. But Baku named the city Black City for its grimy oiled fields. It was no paradise. Oil wells spewed out this mazout, a thick waste sludge that polluted rivers, while still these uncontrolled fires ate up derricks every night. Ludwig tackled this meth with more inventions. He created the forsunk, and it's a burner which dunked the mazout residue into a swirling vortex to make clean, steady flame, perfect for powering Russian factories and even train engines. He also built the world's first continuous flow refinery, which kept production steady and uniform. As Ludwig put it himself, the Nobels controlled everything from oil gushers to oil lamps. which helped them handle the wild price swings and beat out rivals like the Rothschilds. This invention, the four-sunk burner, came from pure need. Competitors tossed mazot into just dangerous lagoons where it built up as a fire risk, and it was also, an ugly mess. Ludwig tinkered in a rough shed, singeing even his beard from the test flames until he nailed a submerged nozzle design that produced a blue smokeless burn. And this was twice as efficient for heating boilers. He patented it in 1881, and it's sold licenses around the world, from textile mills in Manchester to shipyards in Japan. Next up were continuous refineries, tall towers that separated crude oil in nonstop loops, even producing early versions of gasoline 10 years ahead of schedule. And these weren't just lucky flashes of genius. Ludwig's St. Petersburg factory prototyped the parts and shipped them on his own rail cars. And the rivals laughed it off as just Swedish fairy tales. But soon Branobel's lamps burned brighter and safer than anyone else's, proving them wrong. Family arguments were brewing under the surface, and Alfred was frustrated that the messy oil business was pulling time and money away from his explosive works, nitroglycerin and TNT. But Ludwig's diplomatic touch held the family together, welding the brothers into an unbreakable alliance. Their letters lay bare the strain. Alfred's dispatches from Paris seethed with frustration over delayed royalties, and while Robert's field reports, were stark pleas for more funds. Ever the mediator, Ludwig dispatched crisp telegrams, masterfully juggling ledgers and egos to keep the peace. In 1880, the brothers held a family meeting in Stockholm that healed their divides. Over glasses of aquavit and hearty cooked meals, they outlined a 5-year business plan. Alfred finally agreed that the oil operation, with its what he called necessary filth of muddy fields and smoky refineries, was essential, if dirty, complement to his clean dynamite work, supplying the reliable money needed to fund his explosive inventions. This teamwork fueled the company's growth. Alfred's cash bought 200 more oil wells, and Robert's determination got the fields running smoothly. During the oil boom, Ludwig's focus on treating people well really took off. He believed in making money while also doing good. In the tough, competitive world of Baku, where workers slaved away for 16 hours a day just to earn pennies, Ludwig made big changes. He set an 8-hour workday, got rid of wage fines for mistakes, and shared 10% of profits with supervisors. He doubled pay compared to what others offered and banned hiring anyone under 14. One of the best examples of this progressive thinking was Villa Petrolea, built in 1882, a clean, green neighborhood for 1,000 foreign workers with company-funded brick houses that had small gardens, schools, and a hospital. There was even, a cooperative bank called Sparkasse that gave low-interest loans, libraries full of books by writers like Ibsen, dining halls that served hot meals every day. The Nobelites, these nicknamed workers of his, were so loyal, they saw Ludwig more like a caring dad than a boss. Villa Petrolea was Ludwig's dream come true, designed with the help from his wife Edla. It covered 100 acres with neat rows of two-story homes, each with a porch for relaxing in the summer evenings, plus shared bakeries that filled the air with the smell of fresh rye bread. The hospital was a bright white building staffed by doctors brought in from Sweden, offering free care for fevers, broken bones, and other illnesses. The schools didn't just teach reading and math. They covered mechanics and chemistry too, with scholarships for smart local kids. And the Sparkasse Bank gave people real power. One Finnish oil driller used a loan to buy a land back in his home country. Another, a Swedish metal worker, started his own tool-making side of the business. And during these times, the dining halls brought everyone together, Swedes, Finns, and Russians, sharing Russian dumplings and Swedish open sandwiches, and even singing songs that crossed the language barriers. So these changes paid off. Workers missed half as many days, and production went up 25%. It proved that people who are treated well work harder and better than those pushed around. And, in Baku, even the local people gained from Branobel's work. The company paid for the city's first public park, which is still lush and green today. Ludwig pushed for better ties between groups by hiring Azeri men, and these are men from a local ethnic group, as oil pump operators and training them on safe practices, while also funding mosques for Muslims right next to Lutheran chapels for Christians. And in 1884, when a cholera epidemic hit hard, Branobel's quick quarantine efforts saved thousands of lives, winning praise and thanks from the Russian Tsar. It's a really amazing story. By 1885, troubles emerged. Rivals sabotaged the fields with poisoned wells and cut pipelines out of jealousy. But Ludwig pushed the Tsar to build railroads to Baku, linking oil to the empire's core. And his sons started learning the business. 26-year-old Emmanuel ran the refineries. 11-year-old Levin Jr. Followed the draftsman. But the intense work took a toll. And Ludwig's angina, this really chest pain, began as a warning. Still, these years made him what's quoted as the Russian Rockefeller, praised for smart, fair methods, not harsh tactics. Branobel earned its 40% share of Russia's kerosene lamps through hard work, not monopoly. And his lobbying, it was really impressive. In St. Petersburg, he wowed the ministers with tank car models and won subsidiaries for 600-mile rail line that was finished in 1883. It cut travel time in half, flooding markets with Nobel fuel. But the angina pains hit hard during the meetings. So he took breaks to finish saunas to rest and plan for handing over the company. Ludwig's middle years built an empire, not one of iron machines, but one that brought light to the world through oil. He didn't just dig deep into the earth for crude. He reached into people's souls, showing that business could truly lift workers and communities higher. Next up, his later years, battling health issues, winning over the Tsar, and a death that sparked the creation of the Nobel Prizes. Tune in for episode 3. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.